Okay. I gotta close. Okay. Okay. Alright. Okay. Guys, listen to me. Listen to me very carefully. He has done it. He has finally done it. Did you guys see this?
Sure, no!
Okay, he's coming close. Okay. So he has done it. He has officially become a Xenoblade fan. He has officially finished Xenoblade Chronicles, and he's now scary because he keeps quoting lines here and there. Listen to me, guys. Listen.
Fine, you're a lifesaver.
You see that? That is scary. He's coming for me every single second. So if anything happens to me, you say, "Oh God, I hear the door." Oh yeah, it's run time, baby. No, wait. Listen. We can explain. No, wait. No! I bet you can't tell how excited I was, but basically speaking, today we're going to be talking about a game that I have basically poured over a month and a half's worth or even more of my time and dedication towards. I'm talking about a series of games, or more specifically, a specific game that I am just so excited to talk about, to give all of my general thoughts and everything just out of the way today, and it is absolutely Xenoblade freaking Chronicles for Nintendo, originally for the Nintendo Wii back in 2010, and currently with a definitive edition for 2020 on the Nintendo Switch. So basically a 10-year gap between these two versions, and we're finally gonna close it and end this chapter of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 with all of you. So yes, Xenoblade Chronicles. Like I've said, this has been a game that I've poured over 100 hours of my time towards because of how good this game is, which we'll cover, down the line in this video. This video is basically long for a reason because there's a bunch of stuff that I'm gonna cover, a bunch of stuff that I have my fair share of criticisms towards and my share of appreciation towards too. But for now, just expect more or less what is to come in this video because all in all, I really enjoy this game. This game is clearly going to be my top 10 favorite games of all time, my top 10 favorite RPGs of all time, one of my top 5, all that kind of stuff. This game is an absolute gem of a game and something that has a unique history towards too as well, which we're going to cover in 3, 2, and 1. So to give a lesson on how Xenoblade Chronicles came to be, we have to look all the way back to 2007 when Tetsuya Takahashi officially founded Monolith Soft with the help of Bandai Namco's president at the time, Masaya Nakamura, and from there Monolith Soft become one of the big names that we know of today in terms of third-party development, and their first official title would be the Xeno series, specifically Xenosaga and Xenogear for the PlayStation era. From there up until 2010, Nintendo decided, hey, let's just buy the company, and from there they decided to have them as third-party developers under the Nintendo umbrella and family. And from there is where we get Xenoblade Chronicles, which was released in 2010 in Japan and obviously worldwide, so it was in the late era of the Wii before the inception of the Wii U. Of course, the foundation that Xenoblade brought to the table has some influence and inspiration from the Square Final Fantasy era, more specifically considering that Tetsuya Takahashi worked and helped develop Final Fantasy IV. So clearly he had some inspiration from the early games and utilized it for the Xeno series. And from there, obviously, it created its own identity, its own set of amazing and fantastic characters for us to enjoy, and a world that is just far beyond the horizon and one can comprehend and appreciate in terms of the level of creativity and story-based plots. So now that that short history lesson has been dealt with, we can now dive into the overall aspects of Xenoblade Chronicles, but more so the definitive edition, considering that is the more accessible version compared to the original 2010 back for the Wii. And also because it just looks better. Graphically speaking, the definitive edition is much better looking compared to the original compressed version of Xenoblade Chronicles. So obviously it is better to pick the definitive edition because it's just a graphical gloss up. It's more so a graphical remake. It still holds true to the original storyline of Xenoblade 1, but it does have an epilogue called Future Connected, but that is mostly its own separate realm. That's mostly something that I'll probably deal with in a future video. For right now, I'm just going to be dealing with the basis of Xenoblade Chronicles 1. So the story, I'm going to keep it short and sweet because I want you guys to enjoy this game. I want you guys to really hammer into this RPG title because it is worth a try. I know many people nowadays want to kind of gatekeep this game because they feel like you'll lose the value of what this game is, but at the same time, with the fact that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 finally made the game a little bit more mainstream than it originally was intended, I am happy that many people are getting the chance to experience Xenoblade Chronicles. And for those that have not yet had the chance, I'm not going to spoil the story because the story is definitely worth trying to dive into when you start playing the game. But it's your basic RPG plot. You start with the protagonist Shulk. You know, he is in his colony. He is basically doing what any protagonist does before the call to adventure sets in. Then he sets out to adventure, meet all of his crew that he's gonna have with, all of your party members, go to explore the world, and then like any other typical RPG, you find out the truth of what's actually going on, then you beat God, and then you somehow become God. So that's basically like any other RPG, that's how it is. But the setup of how this story works is what makes this game unique and something that I really want you guys to try. So this is a synopsis of the story, but now we're gonna dive into the gameplay and how the game functions. Actually, I lied there for a second because I'm actually gonna dive a little bit deep into the characters because the characters are an important part of the story. The more you meet these characters, the more you learn how the world works and how more or less is the interactions between each character. Shulk as a protagonist compared to any RPG character I have seen is one that really is very straightforward with what he wants to do. He is hell-bent on his quest for, reasons that I'm not going to dive into because again, I don't want to spoil the game for you, but he goes full in with that mentality of I'm going to take care of the situation and I will do it, and I have team members that are going to back me up. And that is something that you see constant throughout the story, especially in the story arcs. But the one problem that I do have with the story is how unequally divided the chapters can be in certain portions, especially mid to late game, where there are certain moments of the story where it just drags too long and you just want to continue playing the game and to continue experiencing the story. But due to the fact that there are certain elements of that storyline, you have to just go through the motions with it, and you just have to, I guess, try and not truly pay attention to what's going on. And that's the only problem that I have with the story, is that there are moments that it drags and it drags, but there are moments that outshine the dragness that it just makes it all the more appreciative. Oh, and Melia. I'm just gonna say Melia is the best character. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say best girl of the Xenoblade 1. I'm just saying. Okay, just do not argue here. It's a fact. Melia is the best one. So yeah. So now gameplay. So the gameplay is obviously your standard RPG title. You basically go from one place to another. You experience side quests and certain missions and you have to take care of within there. You grind, you level up, there's bosses. It's your typical standard RPG, but with a few keynote differences along the way. And some of them is its combat. The combat is not your typical turn-based RPG that you would normally see in Dragon Quest or in the classic Final Fantasy era, or even a RPG that you would see in the current Final Fantasy games and Kingdom Hearts. This is something that I've managed to figure out, and something that I think is the most basic way to describe it is real-time RPG, or better known as MMORPGs. It's not an MMORPG, it just utilizes the same gameplay mechanics of an MMORPG, and that is with the usage of skills and arts. Each character has certain skills and certain arts that can break an opponent, meaning it staggers them for a period of time, It's something that could topple them, which means it increases the amount of duration that stagger is going to be. And then there's obviously a dazzle, which makes them have some sort of special effect, and then so on and so forth. So there are certain skills that also require the usage of the movement of where the character is being positioned. There are certain arts that increase the amount of defense, that increase the amount of attack against an enemy based on the position that you are in. So if you're on the side of an enemy, sometimes there's going to be a flashing blue check mark saying use me, and you use it and you increase the damage of that attack. So it's basically like an MMORPG. If you played any previous MMORPGs, you know more or less how Xenoblade is going to work. For someone like me, I had no idea how this game was going to work until chapter 7. That's where I realized, yep, this is how the game works. And then when you realize how the game works, it is utterly broken. It is in your favor throughout the rest of the game, assuming you are over leveled, because that's also one of the main problems that Xenoblade does have, is that the level system is entirely broken, in the sense that if you are not at the right level, if you don't have the right skills, if you do not increase the level of those skills, you are going to get wrecked. You are going to get wrecked by the most basic of enemies, because you have no idea which characters are suited for which enemies, which characters have the better arts for each thing, whether support, defense, attack, offense, all that kind of stuff. If you do not know how these skills are function or how they are utilized in the combat of Xenoblade, you are going to be stuck there for a while, and you are going to regret playing the game. Because at that point, especially in the beginning of the game, where things do feel a little slow in regards to the combat and the gameplay, you feel like you are wasting your time. But if you do understand how the gameplay mechanics work, then the game is in your favor. So two other unique concepts that Xenoblade does have, and I think one of them is very familiar if you have played previous Persona games, is the affinity chart. The affinity chart is basically your way of increasing your affinity between each and every party member. The more you use that party member, the more you use them in battle, the more they interact with specific characters, the more their affinity grows. And there are 5 stages of that each have a 100-point radius between them. So obviously this requires you to use every character in your arsenal and figure out which set of characters work best with which set of skills, and how they're able to do chain attacks. And that's the other unique feature of Xenoblade, the chain attacks. The chain attacks are basically used with a gauge meter that you have at the top left of your screen. Whenever that fills all the 3 blue bars up, you're able to use your chain attack. And that means you're able to have, for a brief period of time, take advantage of the situation of the combat and try and figure out the best way to hit as hard as you can and as much as you can. And it is all basically RNG based. At least that's how I find the chain attack to be, because there are certain factors of how you can use the chain attacks to your favor, whether it's a break, topple, daze feature, whether it's a support, attack, defense style. It also depends on the characters and their positions as well. But point is, the chain attacks are there and they're basically perfect for strong enemies and bosses, and they just help keep the flow of the battle going. Plus, it also has pretty dope music, which, funny enough, we're going to be talking about the music here. So the music of the Definitive Edition is remixed from the original Xenoblade, but they're both composed by Yoko Shinomura. And if you don't know who Yoko Shinomura is, well then you clearly have never played a Final Fantasy 15, you clearly have never played Mario and Luigi, and you clearly have never played Kingdom Hearts, which is where she poured her heart and soul into her music. And here in Xenoblade Chronicles, if you've played a Kingdom Hearts game, you know how the music is going to be like in this game. Whether it's the basic boss battles, where it's the regular enemy themes, the locales that you go in, Yoko Shinomura knows how to establish this presence of the location that you are in, the atmosphere of what is going on, all that kind of stuff. But my one gripe with the music is that it can sometimes be overused, especially in certain specific cutscenes that are very story driven and that are very, very important to the overall plot of the game. And sometimes when you're listening to those cutscenes, that same music that you've listened back in chapter 2 is going to be used again in chapter 15. It just, sometimes in very specific moments of the game, in very heartwarming moments of the game, in very, very serious moments of the games, the music can be overused. And once you know what's going on, you know exactly what music is going to be played, and it kind of loses the flow of the situation. But the music is not that bad. Again, this is Yoko Shinomura, so this is clearly peak fiction. And now, with that segue out of the way, we're going to be talking about the bane of Xenoblade here, and that is the side quests. Yes, that is my biggest problem with Xenoblade, even though I did say this is a good game, because it is a good game, trust me. I've said this time and time again. These are just complaints that any Xenoblade or any RPG fan is going to have when it comes to the RPG title they're going. I'm pretty sure for many that have played the classic Final Fantasy game, they've had their fair share of criticism, and I've said in the beginning of this video, I'm going to present my fair share of criticism towards Xenoblade, despite the fact that this is a very good game, and that is the side quests. The side quests of this game is way too much. I have never seen a game that has so many side quests for you to do, and so many of them that are very inaccessible until a later portion of the game. And from that point towards the later portion of the game, you just don't feel like going back and do those side quests because you're already close to beating God. So my one problem with the side quest is, although they do give you a lot of money, and you're gonna need money if you want to upgrade your arts, if you want to get some of the best equipment, if you simply want to get good at the game, you're gonna need a lot of EXP and a lot of money. But more so EXP, if I'm being honest, now that I think about it. Point is, these side quests, sometimes they're not even worth it. Most of the time they don't give you EXP, they just give you money and armor. And the armor that you get in this game, you don't have to buy it most of the time. Yes, I did say that, oh, you're gonna need money to buy certain stuff, but that's mostly the arts and the skills that you're gonna need for your character so that they have the strongest skills in their arsenal. In this case, in Xenoblade Chronicles, there's just no point of having the side quests if they're gonna give you very minimal EXP, if they're gonna give you money that you're barely gonna use half the time, and gems that you're not gonna use because you're clearly gonna end up using the small gem system. You're clearly going to end up going to Colony 9 if you didn't create the small gem generator from that one side quest that man keeps telling you every single time you go to Colony 9 and trying to grind those gems and have some of the best gems of the game, and he keeps telling you, hey buddy, did you get the small gem generator? Did you go to Colony 6 to get the small gem generator? Where's my small gem generator? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? But it's just that the side quests of this game is just so... they're just not worth it half the time, even though some side quests do deserve their time and pacing. And this is the one problem I personally had, because I wanted to do all the side quests. And when I decided that it was not worth to do all the side quests, I basically decided, you know what, I just want to beat the game. I might as well just go and finish the final boss, do that, and just end it there. If I want to go back to the side quests, I can easily go back in a New Game Plus, where I can finally use my junk sword and end up creating it into the end game weapon that I'm not going to spoil, because again, I don't want to spoil the game for you. But point is, the side quests are worth it, but not worth it depending on how you play the game. But other than that, other than the problems that I basically ranted for a bit, Xenoblade Chronicles, especially the Definitive Edition, is a good game. It is a good game in the sense that it does tell you what you need to do. It has this establishment of good characters, good characterization, a good story that you are going to dive into, whether or not you play the minimal 60 hours of the game or you decide to be like me and play more than 100 hours of the game. The point is, you're in for a treat. And even if you're not a fan of the gameplay, even though you feel like you are under-leveled, the good thing about the Definitive Edition is that it has casual mode. So if you feel like you were stuck and you don't want to grind and you want to still be a part of the Xenoblade experience, casual mode is there for you to at least appreciate what the game is all about, which is Shulk and his friends going on an adventure and doing what needs to be done and encountering some hidden mystery gems along the way. And that is something that I love the most about Xenoblade. The difference of how it portrayed the whole hero's quest in terms of an RPG. The fact that everything did feel cliche at times, but it was a moment of cliche where you knew that how are they going to do that? How are they going to make it different than your average other RPG, than a Final Fantasy, than a Dragon Quest, than a Kingdom Hearts? How were they able to do that? And that is what I love the most about Xenoblade. Even though there is my fair share of criticism, as I've said, even though there were many problems that the game had, even though there were certain levels of jank that the Definitive Edition most likely didn't even bother fixing, it still was a good game, and it's still a game worth trying out. And it's also a very game that holds dear to many people's hearts because it shows how grand a world can be in terms of video games without needing to push graphics, without needing to push this sense of we must make this open world. And you also have to consider the fact that this was done on Wii hardware, and also 3DS hardware, because it was also ported over to the 3DS. So on a technicality, it got ported over twice, for the 3DS and also a graphical remake, which is the Definitive Edition. Point is, the fact that you're able to play, just taking a look at the Definitive Edition, the fact that all of that was originally on the Wii, it shows a lot of dedication that Tetsuya Takahashi and all of Monolith Soft wanted to do with Nintendo. They wanted to be ambitious, and ambitious they were, and ambitious they got, because the end result became one of the best and most iconic and also niche RPG titles of all time. This game, Xenoblade Chronicles, and mark my words because it's going to be facts here, despite the problems you may experience with this game, and like all games, Xenoblade Chronicles is going to be an iconic game, is going to be an iconic RPG title, and will forever be a top 10 RPG game to anyone who dives into RPG genre. And that, my friends, is all I have to say about Xenoblade Chronicles. All of my rants, all of my love and appreciation for the series, all of that kind of stuff. And I know that I didn't cover Future Connected, which is the epilogue of Xenoblade Chronicles 1, but I want to do that as a separate video because given the amount of time that I've gave this game, as I've said countless of times throughout this video, I want to at least take a moment to give it its own video and its own level of appreciation, and then maybe compare it to the original Xenoblade Chronicles story, gameplay, and all that kind of stuff to see if they improved on it, if they didn't improve on it, if it's basically the same thing, or if they added new stuff. So Future Connect will have its own video. Don't you worry about that, Xenoblade fans. And obviously, I will dive into Xenoblade Chronicles 2 when the time comes, because I feel a little bit burned out in terms of RPGs. I kind of want to just not use my brain too much and just go with the flow with certain games. I most likely will be playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 somewhere around the winter time, because I am setting my sights on Dragon Quest XI and Okami now that there is a collaboration with Monster Hunter Rise and Okami. So clearly Capcom is telling me, hey Emmanuel, you gotta play Okami soon. If you want to appreciate Amaterasu for what she is, go ahead and play it. So clearly this is my more or less scheduling in terms of video games for the next few months, but hopefully you guys understand. Obviously I'm going to continue giving more input of what's going on, my theories, all that kind of stuff. The point is, in terms of a review like this, it's going to have to be a while, but I hope you guys understand and appreciate that. And you know I like to end these videos because now it's the end of the video. So keep being awesome, keep spreading love and kindness to the world. I know you guys can, and I know I can as well. So let's make sure to do at least one act of kindness to someone out there in the world that needs it each and every day, because I know you guys can, and let's make sure to do it, especially in these times of needs. And keep improving yourselves. I know you guys can, and I know I can as well. So let's make sure to improve by 1%. I still don't know where that source is from, but we will figure it out soon, ladies and gentlemen. But improve by 1%, because 1% every day will go a long way. So make sure to do that, guys, and keep being yourselves. And also, a little bit of a shilling here, a promo time. Go buy a Cafe Gracia mug. They're in the description down below. Go get one of these neat little bad boys today if you reached this far into the video. If not, well then, I'm sorry to say, but you're missing out on the opportunity of a lifetime. So yeah, go get a Cafe Gracia mug. and hope you guys enjoy all the content as well. And know that I love you guys forever and always to 120, and I hope to see you all in the next spectacular, marvelous, amazing, brilliant, shining, and sexy video. I feel better now. Got all that out of my system. Everything feels so good. Right, Nintendo Ninja? Everything's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. So, Emmanuel, I have a few video ideas given how I'm very lacking in the content department. So I have a few here that I think are really worth the time sharing, and we're gonna get Virtual Console for the Nintendo Switch. We're gonna get Virtual Console for the Nintendo. What happened to him? Oh, him? Don't worry about him, you know how he is. Well, I mean, he's sitting in a corner, and normally Nintendo Ninja likes sitting in corners, but not to this degree, so he's clearly not okay. Dude, trust me, he deserves what was coming to him. He deserves all of that, and he'll be fine in a few hours. Like this, don't worry about him, okay? Just forget about him there for a second. Let's have a conversation, you and me, and tell me what exactly do you have planned for future video ideas, Blaine? Give me what you got.